Defined talk after dark. It's usually always after dark for Cote, but it's after dark for me. And I feel like the central time zone still remains the official time zone of software defined talk. I don't know. God's time zone. Some people refer to it. So for you, it's actually a reasonable hour for you today, right?
Yeah.
It's you got a little. We gave you a little extra time to sleep in to if you will, dream up some hot takes. Cote's, I believe he's vacationing somewhere in Europe. I forgot where it was. So
Makes sense.
So it's going to be, I don't know, maybe we should just automatically give this show an R rating because it's starting late.
Whoa.
But we always have
spicy takes and F-bombs.
Yeah, that's a little behind the scenes software defined talk. I always just mark it as like whatever bad language because it's just like, I don't know. It probably always contains bad language. So that's how it is. All right, let me actually put in the in the Slack that we're recording because this is the part people come from. So hold on. I just updated PasteBot, the greatest clipboard manager ever made. Really the only one I've used consistently. So therefore I love it. I don't know. Maybe what's your favorite clipboard manager? Are you in on this?
Not really.
I use you're not a clipboard manager person?
No, in fact, is this sacrilegious or good? I set it so my paste always clears formatting.
No, I don't think that's sacrilegious at all. I think that's like if in lieu of not having a password manager where you kind of have a little bit more flexibility to quickly change between, I think that's what you want, right? I think that's although on the Mac it's what is it? It's Option Control V, I think. So you can always just do it.
Oh yeah, I can never remember it, so I just overwrote it to paste without formatting. So that way, if I'm going from like email to Word or something, it doesn't screw it up or whatever.
That way, if you're going from anything from Microsoft to anywhere else, it'll actually do what you want. That's what you were trying to say.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like, I'm cutting to and from a Microsoft app.
Well, or like you're pasting into a Google Doc and everything's in a 12-point font and like here comes 14 just to mess with it.
No, it's totally. Like, you're right. It's just like it's like Times New Roman. How'd that get in here? I don't understand.
Exactly.
That's not what I wanted.
And my OCD does not let that stand. So.
All right. Well, good. Well, I was about to say, all right, Cote, we're ready to start, but he's not here. So I'm ready. I guess, Brandon, I'm ready to start. So Matt, are you ready to start?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. That's the kind of excitement that we like to bring to the table. So
yeah.
All right, Matt's playing hurt a little bit tonight, so everyone.
Well, yeah, I'm still kind of looking at the topics to try to get excited about.
It's gonna be good, Matt. You just gotta get going. Every show, we're professionals. Every show is great. Doesn't matter. We put it on. Whether
Cote's not here, or we should talk about chips.
We are gonna do that. That's the Mac section coming up. That's gonna be our segue.
Good.
Oh well, yeah, we're definitely talking.
I was worried we weren't going to talk about that.
Yeah, well,
Mac and NVIDIA.
We should go 2 hours on RISC-V. We just read the instruction set out loud and just be like, hey, what do you guys think about this?
Yeah.
Have we decided, is it RISC-V or RISC-V?
RISC-V.
It's RISC-V. Okay. Well, I guess as the official RISC-V podcast, I should be saying it correctly. So, all right, here we go.
See, now you got me wondering, like, it's RISC-V. Yeah, it's RISC-V. Wikipedia,
I don't know. Well, I mean, it's like it's not. I mean, again, is it obvious?
What would it be V for? I don't know.
I don't know. Like, is it obviously
reduced instruction set?
Maybe that is obvious, but I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Was there a RISC-IV?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess, and they've been using Roman numerals. I guess I should know this. I don't know the answer.
Beats me. I think 5 is the first one that was like an open source, standard.
Because I think I've seen the number, like actual number after, like RISC-III, I think was the actual 3. So
well, then you've got companies like Sci5.
All right, we'll get to the bottom of this.
No, we already did.
We got okay. We're gonna say RISC-V until someone tells us we're wrong.
Yes, until somebody updates Wikipedia and the risk5.org page.
Well, no, we should ask your coworker who's going to be at the show.
Look, I think between the actual riskv.org website and Wikipedia, they both say it's RISC-V.
So we'll say we have two sources. Like that's New York Times type of citing. We can just say it's true.
The New York Times cite Wikipedia?
Now you see. Now you ask another good question.
I think going to
probably not, but maybe.
I think going to the RISC-V website.
Yeah, they would just
where they literally tell you how to pronounce it on the front page.
Okay, well then yes, I think we should take the
You're like, no,
it seems like single sourcing that would be fair.
Yeah. Oh wait. 81 pronunciations of RISC-V in English. You gotta love AI.
All right, well maybe we can play that. We'll have to find some way to play some of those. All right, well here, let's get going. You ready?
Oh sure.
Well, there's breaking news out of the Excel world, Matt, and I felt like if there's anything that I want to cover in detail is updates to Excel, and more importantly, really esoteric updates to Excel. So this is the one I think we mentioned on the show a few months ago, that Microsoft Excel will automatically convert things that look like a date to a date. So if you type in March 1, that becomes a date, right? Which is probably what 99% of the people out there think would be the right behavior. And the problem with this, as we reported earlier, was genes. Actually, the scientific, human genome often uses the that's right. They often use these, some of these words in naming genes. So like March 1 is the name of a gene. So it's got the membrane associated ring CH type finger 1, whatever that means. So anyway, long story short, the scientist would type this into Excel. Excel would automatically change it to dates. Then boom, chaos, right? Like people had to manually go in and change it. All the data got corrupted. And who knows, maybe this set back us discovering the human genome for many, many months. But fear not, the Excel people a product manager must have got wind of this. They fixed this Excel feature. And so what they have done is you can now, quote, disable, can convert. They have this feature now. So it's just a checkbox. You basically turn off, convert continuous letters and numbers to dates. So you can just turn that off. And that way that the scientists can now paste in their data, now, and it will not automatically be converted. Go ahead.
All right. So, put on your product manager hat. Is that a setting that's saved within the Excel file itself, or is that is that
a global
local user?
I believe based on what I read, that it was a global setting. So you just do it one time. But you have to do it. I think you're right. I think
but everyone would have to do it, right? So if you're sharing, if there's that one scientist who refuses to upgrade his version of Excel, or God forbid, he's still using like Excel on the desktop or something.
No, well,
he's got like the 2017 edition or something. And it's like, why do I need to upgrade? And he's like, I'm not spending $300 because of the stupid March 1 bug.
You have immediately brought up several good issues. One, all the scientists have to simultaneously upgrade to the new version. Then two, because somebody won't turn it on, right?
Like God for sense, right?
And so what happens is they're going to import the spreadsheet, or they're going to open it. And I wonder what happens. I wonder if it then automatically goes. So it's like someone's going to be like, I did all the work. It's all correct. And then someone else is going to open the workbook. And then it's like, if they type in March 1, then it'll convert to a date. So that's a good, I don't know. We're going to have to, you know what? There could be follow-up to this follow-up.
This is one of those bugs that's going to like, we fixed it in 2023. And then, come 2030, there's still going to be like people getting bit by this thing. Given the history of Office, this is easily a 20-year bug.
Probably. Well, there's also, so this is this was the thing that I thought was funny. So they did all this and they fixed it, right? Or, they announced it. And there's a blog that you can go read about how they did it. But they also said in the blog, they said there is also a known issue. You can't disable the conversions when running macros. So if you're, which of course is like, I don't know what the scientists do. I don't know if like macro people, but if you are a macro person with your Excel scientific data, then you're just SOL. You're just back to like, you don't have it fixed. Although like, I'm really curious now, the one you said there, it's like, so if I send you the workbook and you open the workbook, because I don't think it will read all the
I think this is another case for Jupyter notebooks, right?
Oh, well, that's the preferred method.
Sorry. Yeah. Real scientists don't use Excel.
Well, no, these are legitimate. Like these are actually
No.
scientists. That's what I'm saying. It's like, but they're like the kind of scientists that don't have time to learn.
Oh, I know the kind.
Right?
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about? It's like I am
that.
a scientist. I do not learn Excel, and it's like here we are. But all of this is like, so one, congratulations to Microsoft for sort of fixing this bug. I mean, I think it is.
Hey, they fixed it as best they can. The problem is they're a victim of their own success, and this is going to continue to bite people for, well, probably as long as they support the Win32 API.
But I feel for them because, like, I'm sure this was brought up.
Oh, I know.
Like, I mean, because like, you have to think 99.99% of the people that use Excel, when you type in March 1, you want it to be a date. Like that is what you're thinking, right? So the fact that this, I would say whoever first publicized it, because like The Verge is now covering this, which they're all over it. So I think that's why. Congratulations to The Verge and other tech publications for bringing this up, because that's the only reason this got fixed. Somebody walked in, somebody's boss is like, listen, we can't have the scientists studying genes, changing the name of genes. So that's what they did. They basically went through and they gave the genes new names, like new like digits, so it wouldn't automatically. They can't be like, hey, we can't hold back scientific progress because we have this date field. So you can see where it came. You can see where they were like, this is what's going on, and somebody probably got yelled at.
Exists somewhere else, but at least they didn't try to spin it off as like the Excel scientific edition or something like that.
That would have been even worse, where they double the price and they're like, "Yep," and you get a checkbox.
Yes, but you know what? Then the scientists could, when they're talking to each other, they're like, "I can't send it to you. You're not using scientific edition." And it would be like XLSXSE is the extension.
That's it. Well, now they did say there was a feature in there that will automatically, it would notify you if you're changing data automatically. That was another little nice thing. So maybe that's their backup. It's
I like it.
If things start to get changed automatically, it tells you like, hey, your scientific data is being all changed. So yeah. All right, but this brings me to the question, and I'll give you a second to think about it. It's like, it doesn't have to be a Microsoft product, but maybe it will be for you. So like, if I let you fix, like, what is the Matt Ray esoteric bug in software, in any software, that I was like, okay, here's your bug fix super card. Like, it's like, yep, I'm going to fix this one specific bug or feature. So while I'll give you a moment to think about that, I'm going to say mine is this, right? Very, very petty, small thing is in Microsoft Outlook on a Mac, right? How the hotkeys, anytime you use a Microsoft product on a Mac, the hotkeys are just always not what you think they are. They're never like, whatever command, whatever. It's always like Control Shift. Like there's like several weird things you have to do. Now, the one I want to change is when I am done with an email, I want to hit the delete key, but I want the delete key of the email to archive the email, much like it does in MimeStream. And if you've ever used Microsoft Outlook on a Windows machine, you hit backspace, which is like the perfect way. Like I've done the email, hit backspace and it archives email, right? I don't want it actually deleted. So the current key combination is Control E. Why is it Control E in Microsoft? I have no idea. So that's the only way you can do it.
Because that's end of line.
But it's super annoying. It's like the perfect key. And because Microsoft has figured this out on Windows, right? They're like, yeah, the backspace key is perfect, right? Because you just hit it, it archives it. And for native Mac applications like MimeStream, they've also figured it out. Like, yeah, you just set your preference. When I hit delete, I don't mean delete. I mean, of course, I'm not deleting an email, just archive it, right? So that's mine. I want to change Control E. And I would settle for like they did here. It's fine. You can embed this thing as a preference inside a checkbox, inside a drop-down list, wherever you want. However many levels you want to go, I'll do it. I'll find it, and I want to change it. So if they won't actually change the default key, then that's fine. A preference would be good. So that's my petty, small Microsoft Outlook change that I would want. Now, do you have any specific features that you would like changed that are, if we call them petty and small?
I think some of the Gmail key shortcuts are, I can never remember any of them because none of them are very intuitive. Like archiving stuff, or some of maybe there aren't key shortcuts, but so I haven't given this the level of thought that you have, but I have your solution.
Okay. Yep.
So macOS will actually let you do key overrides per application.
I've seen this. Yes. Go on.
So you could actually set delete to be Control E.
Yep.
So there's your solution.
I have, but then it's like you can't get like
Then you can't
You
use
know,
delete.
I guess let me say this, like when I've done it, it's like, it is incredibly powerful what you're talking about. The Max, because it's nice. The Max is like, listen, you want to go in here and you want to drive, I'm going to let you drive. But it's like, I'm always just a little worried. I'm like, global override per application. It's like, it could go a lot of different ways, right? Because it's always,
but that's the nice thing is you can make it specific only to one application.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe
which is kind of cool.
I'm just a little gun shy. I'm always like, every time I'm in there, I'm like, because it's the same thing with Mac will do like word substitutions. Like you can type in like a short word.
Yeah, I've never really gotten
one. Like it is what I want, but I'm like, this is a little too powerful for me. Like I'm a little worried.
It never really worked consistently enough for me. I think there's something in the application that has to know about it. I didn't know where that level of find and replace was happening because of like I've tried that and I think it would like, it would work in Word, but not Emacs, or, it wouldn't work in, it wasn't consistent enough for me to use it. But the global setting that we were talking about before the show that I love is paste without formatting, which, that is a global default for me, which does bite you occasionally. But then you can go to the menu of your app and say paste. So if you actually want your formatting preserved, you can use the menu. But
so that's another one that like, if we went to Apple, we could argue, it'd be like, listen, the default behavior should be paste without formatting.
The default lifestyle, when you see their ads of people dragging and dropping things across applications, that's what it's there for.
Do people do that though?
Aren't
those ads like aspirational? Aren't most people like, I got to paste from the Word doc to this Mac for the Safari browser? And it's like, anytime you cross that, it's like crossing the streams in Ghostbusters. Like when you're going from a Microsoft app cut and you're pasting into like the Apple native world, I mean, anything can happen. Hurricanes can be spawned, life-threatening events can happen, or it could actually paste the text.
Genes can get turned into dates.
Right. You don't know what happens when you're cutting and pasting between those. Like, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the AI changes and all the great things that are happening in the world. But for some reason, cutting and pasting between a Mac app and a Microsoft app on I guess let's say Mac OS is a problem that will live on for decades, right? There's no amount of AI that we could apply to this problem where it'd be like, hey, you know what? Like, don't paste it in 27-point bold. It's like, how could you know that that's
nobody wants that?
That's on. I've never done that. I wouldn't want it. How could we train the machine learning algorithm to know that, hey, why don't you just paste in and match the same exact font that's already there?
Yes, that's why I did it, because it was like, at no point am I ever going to want what's in a web page repeated in my Word doc. Ever. Ever.
So, all right. Well, we fixed it. So now that the Microsoft people have fixed the scientific genome problem, I agree. Now they should turn their attention to my petty email archive problem. So I look forward to in Outlook version, whatever we're on now, because there's a new version of Outlook on the Mac. And it actually does. It has frequent updates. Always updates I don't care about. A lot of new features I never use. So if they could sneak this one in like a point release and just be like, hey, heard on Software Defined Talk, now you can remap the delete. I would say that would be a real success for this podcast. That would maybe
if we had a hotline to anyone's product management, that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. So, all right. Well, speaking of Microsoft, they had quite a good week. So the news this week was Microsoft released their earnings, and it says the headline was, Microsoft blows past earnings estimates as cloud growth comes in hot. So I guess the official numbers here are it's a 19% bump in revenue to $24.3 billion during the latest quarter, and analysts were only looking for $23.5 billion. So as we all know, whenever you exceed the analyst expectations, your stock goes up. So that part was in itself, nice, because I think up until now, everyone's been talking about what they call it in your world, optimization, right, Matt? Everyone's always optimizing, which is a short way of saying we're not sure why people aren't buying anything, but we'll just assume they're optimizing what they have. That's what I believe that really means.
They might not be spending more, but they're happier.
Yeah, but they're optimizing, right? Because who isn't optimizing? We're all optimizing. But one of the things I thought was kind of interesting, one of the talking points is they said Microsoft now has 1 million paid Copilot users and more than 37,000 organizations that subscribe to Copilot for Business. So our friend Jamin Ball, rather, I always say his name wrong. He's a venture capitalist we've had on the show. So he did the math for us, and he says that it converts into $120 million annual revenue business, recurring revenue. So my initial thought was like, this is probably the revenue wise is probably the highest grossing business for AI. Like, is that like a crazy thought to throw out? Do you think there's something?
I mean, unless you count like licensing deals where, OpenAI is the back end to somebody, or or something similar to that, where they're making money, but they're being resold under something else.
Right. So there's kind of that, but I kind of just like the one thing that just struck me here was like, it's like kind of contrasting a lot of the various like, waves of technology we come. We're always like, how are people going to make money? But I like the simplicity of this. It's like there's GitHub Copilot, which I've not used, but I've used obviously a lot of the AI tools for generating code. And it's like, yeah, once you've done it, you're never going back. I'm 100% convinced of that value proposition. And if it's not worth $10 a month, I mean, it's really, if anything, it's priced low. It's worth a lot more than that, in my opinion. So, I love
they're worried about losing even more money.
That's what I say. That's what's kind of weird here, though. It's like, well, this is great because we can understand the value it brings. We understand why people want to use it. And on, kind of the absolute number of $120 million, like that's a good business. Of course, it's not billions of dollars. But then as I wanted to get your take, it's like, well, as we all know, to actually run these queries, like what do you think it actually costs them to actually service? I guess you think about all the GPUs and all the computing costs. Like, do you think it's well over $120 million a year?
Well, that's
service these queries.
That's what folks are speculating that. I mean, just based off of known numbers around how much AI costs. That every time you write up a hello world, you're burning down 5 trees. It's I mean that's kind of the offset, and so ostensibly Microsoft is losing. What was the number? They lose $20 a month per customer, or something like that.
Well, they're charging $10 a month per customer, so I don't know. Right. I mean, I know OpenAI has said something like that. They lose X dollars per month, for every query, or something like that.
But obviously this is still the customer acquisition phase, right? Where they know how they're going to make money. They have an obviously attractive model where people have decided $10 a month sounds decent, right? So if they start charging more, maybe they lose the volume. $1 million seems like a lot, but it's also, I mean, it's 1 million users is a lot of users. To think that there are that many developers seats that are paying for it, I'm actually quite surprised. But that's mostly because like I don't trust. I know the quality is pretty high, but like I spend a lot of time scrutinizing code, finding the little things that are bad, and I don't know if I would trust AI enough where I wouldn't feel like I'm constantly in code reviews. But I'm constantly in code reviews anyway, so it's neither here nor there.
I mean, that's the thing. I don't think it replaces that. I think it's sort of like you still want to go through the code review, and more importantly, hopefully, you're running on your unit tests. So it's like that's the one place.
See, I mean, the problem I feel like is it unlocks people who don't know what they're doing to do it faster. And as someone who's on the goalie end of receiving pull requests, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what are the side effects of this? What's wrong with this? And I talked about it in the Slack channel this week. I got a pull request for a documentation update that clearly had been run through ChatGPT or something, or Bard or whoever, because the guy was you look him up on GitHub and he was doing dozens, if not maybe hundreds of PRs to lots of projects, just spamming them. And this is innocuous-ish, where it's hey, these are just readmes, and he's trying to get them added to the contributors. But what happens when the next person's like, okay, I've got a list of everything that's using Go, everything that uses the Cobra CLI building library. I'm going to submit the same vulnerability patch to 150 things, and I've kind of built up this thing, and it's it's a way of weaponizing script kiddies where they don't really know what they're doing, but they're sending it to a lot of places faster. I feel, and initially when I got the PR, I was like, okay, good, nice, a documentation update. And then I was like, this reads like AI. And then I looked up the user, and yeah, it was definitely like the same spammy stuff over and over again. So I I wish things were a little slower sometimes, where I could spend enough time ensuring high quality gets through. Maybe we need more AI testing is what we need.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you bring up a good question. I mean, I think it's all things with AI. It's like the scale, right? Things can be done at such scale and so quickly, right? That it sort of can overload, um, people looking at it. But I will say, I don't know. I mean, I guess I've just had so many positive experiences.
Oh yeah, I've definitely had positive.
Yeah.
I just wish that um, I move really fast, which makes me feel like I'm skipping steps, and I worry about my own quality, let alone the quality of other people's stuff.
Yeah,
Like if you don't know a language well enough and you start submitting huge PRs, who knows what's getting through?
right. But I
Especially
mean,
if
I
it's
definitely, there's definitely the case where you're talking about where somebody, I don't know, that was even some more nefarious thing. Is like, is that person just trying to build up his profile and his
who
GitHub
knows. But
stuff? And so that's sort of a little bit more weird. But like on the other side, it's like it is nice in my own limited usage, but it's sort of like I would much rather like spend the time like using it and like quote unquote making sure my source code is good. Like it's done the quote
yes,
most appropriate way
yeah,
before
no.
I send it. And it's like, like I
Oh,
think the
I'm all for it. I'm all
right.
for it. I just don't disregard those of us who have to merge other people's code.
No, I totally get it. I just the Python is the language I've been playing with the most lately, and it's like there's always this this prompt where you can take like what you wrote and be like write it so it's more Pythonic, and then you're like, oh, that's how the professionals do it. You're like when they take
Yeah.
it, you're like,
And
oh,
I don't know the languages well enough,
oh,
right? So I feel like, what am I missing?
yeah.
It makes me second guess myself even more, which maybe I should. Maybe I should lean on the AI to be like, hey, tell me what I'm missing here. But
Well, I think it's like we always talk about, it's automation, right? It's like obviously, you want to like look at it, but then at the same time, it doesn't get you out of like the unit test, the code reviews. It's just like to your point, earlier point, like how can AI help you do that? Can AI point some of this stuff out? So, but kind of wrapping on the Microsoft thing, I just wanted to say, like, I would want your take on this, but my feeling is like Microsoft is just dominating this generative AI. They have done everything right. I feel like they have a good product that has a growing revenue, even though it may cost them money. I think it makes sense. They've done the partnership with OpenAI, and they kind of converted this into a nice earnings narrative, which led to, at least a little uptick in their stock. So I'm like, I think if we were declaring a winner at this point, like I feel like Microsoft has just crushed it. Like they have played, like we often say, like Microsoft's like behind that is often a narrative around other things like mobile. But I'm like, here they are far and away, I guess, kind of like, if you will, outpacing Google and AWS. Is that too strong? Am I giving them too much praise?
no, I mean, I think, we AI wasn't even like kind of on our radar when they did the GitHub acquisition, but we knew that would give them a leg up for the next steps. The assumption being, oh, they're going to be, open source, and the developer minds, if you can hold the center of that universe, you'll have a leg up on whatever happens next. Well, here we are, and whatever happens next, right? They've got all the code. They've got the developer relationship. AI shows up, and they're like, oh yeah, we know how we can monetize that.
Yeah.
And everyone else is a little flat-footed, because why would I use a Google product versus a Amazon product versus a product that reads everyone's GitHub?
Yeah. Anyway. Well, I don't know. We'd have to go back in time. I wonder what we said about the GitHub acquisition at the time. I wonder if we said good things or bad things. But
we said good things. Yeah,
I think we did. But we'll let someone else fact check us on if it said. But like now looking ahead, I don't think Microsoft anticipated this. But you're right. It's like talk about like it working out in the sense of like you're like owning GitHub is going to be strategically valuable down the road, and there was a lot of benefits with just Azure in general and goodwill. And now that they've got a product that they can directly monetize, you're like, wow, this could turn out to be, a huge win for them. Right. So, I mean, credit to Microsoft. Now, on the other end of the spectrum is Google. So Google, I don't know what, do we always have to say
Is it
Alphabet?
that?
Google parent Alphabet
Sure.
cloud division misses revenue estimates as Microsoft Cloud booms. So okay, so this was the numbers here. So Google Cloud third quarter revenue rose to 22.5% to $8.41 billion.
That sounds
Unfortunately,
good.
it does.
Billion.
When you read that part, you're like, sounds good. But you read the next sentence, it's like the slowest growth since at least the first quarter of 2021. And the cloud unit reported an operating income of 266 million compared to last year's loss of 440 million.
That
So,
sounds good.
I mean, I guess what we're seeing here is like a real contrast, right? Is that like Microsoft really leading the way? Of course, this is always such a weird thing because Google sort of, if you will, the people at Google were the ones who like wrote the transformer that sort of like set off the AI revolution, at least as we're kind of this version of it. And so it's not kind of showing up in Google's numbers here though. And I guess it's sort of, I don't know. I think that's got to be extremely frustrating for the GCP leadership that, you kind of had all of this, but you're not seeing the revenue. So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think the people at Google are thinking right now?
Well, I mean, so if their operating income of 266 million, so they're only making 266 million a
Right.
year. Okay. As profit. Is that
That's right. Yep.
okay?
Yep.
And the profit over at Azure and AWS is
Well, the
10
revenue
million.
is significantly higher, right?
Oh
And
yeah. The revenue is significantly higher, but
the
also the
profit, I guess, is
margin.
always going to be a little. I mean, I think we can assume AWS is going to report later, but AWS and Microsoft, we can say they're making significantly more, right?
Yeah.
Like billions. They're making billions, right? And I think this is like, this is the unfortunate thing. I think, because we kind of joke about like, is Google committed, right? I think we kind of always have that joke. It's because, because you like, and I guess I'll put it in here, like killed by Google, right? It's always like, oh, they killed off something really good. But when you read this next line here, it's like, because Google, if you will, the search engine and the ad business is doing great. So the company reported ad revenue of 59.65 billion in the third quarter, compared with 54 billion. So that's really right there. That's $5 billion more, right? That's all of basically, not all of it, but no, I guess half of what GCP makes. And it goes on to say that YouTube reported revenue of 7.95 billion. So again, up over basically $1 billion from last time. So the advertising business of Google, right? Which that's really where all the money comes from when you get down to it. Between YouTube and Google search, I mean, an absolute money machine. So I always just envision, the staff meeting, right? You have the GCP leader coming in, Thomas Kurian, right? Then you have the head of Google search come in, and then you have the head of YouTube come in. And it's like it's got to be an uncomfortable meeting, right? You're like, you're sitting there and your peers are making billions and billions I mean, like literally just printing money. I mean,
Yes.
with capital costs that are probably pretty well understood. And then, I'm sure you're given some slack, like, hey, we need you to build that. But there's got to be a lot of internal pressure to be like, you need to be creating a business that's at least on par with YouTube, right? You can't. So I don't know. But am I overstating that? Do you think maybe the Google people have a much longer term view towards GCP, or
Well,
do you think
the revenue of YouTube ads is less than Google Cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably a boatload more people at Google Cloud, though. But yeah, but what's Google gonna do, right? If you can't give up. I mean, you just if you give up, you're ceding the future to Microsoft and AWS. I mean, there's no turning back, right? We've already established, like, if if you're not in it, you will never be in it again. Is pretty much where we are at this point. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we've got enough of a fast follower culture and the cloud providers that like nobody's really sneaking up on them. Especially at the scale that they're at, and so you can't really cede that territory to your competitors. Even even like, fine, we're just going to go back into advertising. It's like, well, that just means it's one less place for you to make money, and then if you're not making new money, the private equity is coming for you.
No, I think that's the question. I mean, I think the quote unquote, although it won't happen at Google because of the way that
Google gets acquired by private equity.
Well, they have the whole ownership structure right around where the founders still kind of control it. But it is one of those questions, though. I think what you said is right. That it's not like they're going back. GCP is going to be here forever, right? They're going to be using. But maybe the question is just sort of like, are they willing to kind of go all in and like really, be like, hey, we like.
Well, what are they not doing? What are they not doing?
Well, I think the question I would have is just more, it's not so much that I think GCP, that group, is not doing stuff. It's just more like, I guess it would be maybe more like the focus of like how much time, like I kind of get the sense of, like there's like, I don't know how they are structured, like, where the meetings are, the buildings. I just feel like GCP is like its own little unit, right? Obviously they're operating as an enterprise company and they're hiring a lot of salespeople and sales engineers and like, kind of runs probably like more the businesses that we know well. Whereas meanwhile, there's this other group that is just like, man, we just throw out a lot of A/B tests and we find new ways to throw up ads and they just make tons of money. And it's like, so I guess it's just like within that business, right? I guess when you're running the whole thing, it's like, can you create a structure where it's like, no, like everyone has focus on GCP. It's almost like I almost take it back to our discussion last week around open source, right? It's like, no, does everybody at Google, are they like, we need GCP to be successful? We're all in on it. Like, I kind of feel like there's like the GCP people, right?
Yeah.
And then there's like the Google people. And they're like, yeah, I don't know. The GCP people, like, I think they're like, they're building some tools. And then you would ask the follow-up question, be like, well, don't we use those tools when we deploy it? No. The Google people are like, no. We have our own stuff. We use Borg. I don't know. They use the watered down versions, right, of the tools. So you got to get a sense that would be the culture.
Oh man, you're probably right. They're probably like everyone's got a google.com email address and the others have like a gcp.com.
Well, I know this. I'm pretty sure this is still the case. And someone from Google can correct me if I'm wrong. I know sometimes, like, if you want to interview there, like one of the first questions they'll ask you, like, do you want to be considered for cloud? So it's like a different track, or like, kind of put in a different pile. Like, oh, do you want to work at like Google? Because like, if you're on the Google, I know it's Alphabet, but if you're on like the Google, it's like you can work on anything. They're like, I don't know. It could be maps in Australia. It could be ads in, Boulder, Colorado, whatever. It's just like anything, right? But if you say GCP, they're like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, that's another. They have to click. They're like, that's another little tab.
Like, oh, you will be a sales engineer.
Yeah, so they're like there. It's like, yeah, you're going to work on the cloud stuff, and that's only. So I don't know. So maybe that's like an interesting tell. Although maybe someone from Google can confirm. Maybe
you'd hope that at least like at the at the engineering level, there's some crossover where they're like, hey, because the folks solving for scaling issues at YouTube are going to be solving for scaling issues in the guts of the cloud, right? I mean, because anecdotally, I know somebody who works at AWS, and like, yeah, they move between commerce and cloud, solving related issues. It was like, oh, we have performance issues, and you will kind of migrate around within the organization to solving those sorts of things. But yeah, other than core engineering, probably you get siloed pretty fast in the Google Cloud side of things. I would assume.
That would be interesting. We should just like, we have no real data, but my guess is like,
we don't need data.
You get hired at AWS. They like literally like wherever we think you need you. Like it could be anything. You could be a retailing cloud. I feel like there would be very little boundaries. Now it may be a little bit chaotic. You'd be like, wait a minute, I want to stay on the cloud stuff. You're like, nope, you're working on the DVD business. And you're like, what do you mean? Is there a DVD business? You're like, yes, there is. You're on it now. So I think there would be like massive fluidity there. I think Microsoft probably like, I feel like it's an enterprise company. So it feels like you could move around there pretty quick. I don't know. Maybe the Microsoft Word person isn't like, let me jump on Azure. Maybe there are some boundaries.
Yeah, I feel there's probably some boundaries between the consumer side to the cloud product side, but those are even blurry now with do they have anything that's well, I was going to say that's desktop only. They literally have desktop.
Well, maybe the Xbox. I bet you probably can't go from the Xbox to Azure. Well, I don't know. Maybe you could. Do you think? I don't know. The Xbox team? That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I was going to say, well, I feel like, though, if you want to go from the GCP group to the Google group, I bet you there's like an interview in between. You're like,
oh, yeah.
We need to talk. Like, We're not like, you need to go through our interview loop. So I don't know. Well, listen, we'll give it to the listeners. If you have an opinion on that and you want to, like, tell us in the Slack, or you want to quietly tell me anonymously, that's also fine too. I always like to hear, like, how it really is, because I don't really know. What do I know, as they say? I'm just a guy with
we're
a
just
microphone.
talking. Yeah,
we're just talking. All right, final cloud thing that I thought I just mentioned here, because why not? It seemed like it fit here. It's that Amazon officially launches the European sovereign cloud as the EU data debate rages. So I don't know. It just seems like
figure
it makes sense, right? Like, yeah, it does. It feels it feels a little bit like, wait a minute, wasn't this already? But it feels like, okay, good. Seems like it feels like Amazon's sort of solved the problem. Be like, okay, we're putting all the EU data over here. Send us the long list of regulations, and that's what that data is going to happen. I don't know. Is there anything else we need to know about that? Does that seem?
I mean, I'm surprised they didn't already have that, but last I heard, they don't have that in Australia either. And they're just like, you can use our data centers; they're fine. And meanwhile, Microsoft is in like the government data centers. Yeah. So
I don't feel like, what's the latest over there in Australia? I don't feel like you're not quite
we're not exactly a huge market.
You're not quite
we're not exactly the EU.
Not EU level of
No.
privacy, right? So
no, but I would assume that, like, you have your Gov Cloud, and you'd probably do your EU Gov Cloud.
Yeah, you're just, you're on the list. Let's be honest, you're on the list. Australia's on the list. It's next quarter, or it's just further out. It's on the map. It's going to eventually.
The competition's already there, and making hay.
All right, so all right, well, we'll have to see. So I guess we'll wrap up cloud earnings by saying Microsoft A+, Google, we'll just say needs work, needs a little support, right? And then AWS, we will tune in next week to see.
Yeah, we're always grading AWS on a curve. Right?
What do we think, Matt? Does AWS exceed expectations, meet expectations, or slightly miss?
I'm gonna go with meet.
I'm gonna go with meet. All right, I think that would be good. That would
I
also be good for our show, because
Yeah.
that would be great, because we'd have everyone in each bucket. That would be so. Hopefully, hey, it's not too late, AWS, if you want to update your earnings release, because that would fit our bucket.
And we could already write the AWS. It's like, it's good, but how good could it have been?
Do you think? I think
it's going to be like $100 billion, and we'll just be like,
during the earnings call, does someone says, we're 3 steps into a marathon. AI is just beginning. Do they say that? Do they say early innings, or do they? Because I feel like 3 steps into the marathon has become the new talking point. That's what I hear.
Well, I think if you're the spicy analyst, you start with a question about GitHub Copilot, and you just see how they get flustered and respond to that.
This is gonna be a segment for the whole show. What we want the financial analyst to ask. So I would have proposed this phrasing. It'd be like,
jerks on the phone. Go.
It would be something along the lines of like, hey, read I guess it'd be Jassy. Hey, read the earnings release, and congratulations on the quarter. I know we're 3 steps into the AI race, but have you seen the results of GitHub Copilot? They're running $120 million annual recurring revenue business solely on this developer tool. Where are you at? I think that would be a fantastic question, because you're getting both. You get the talking point in there first, then you hit them with the statistic, and then because I think that's a pretty good pinned down question. Like,
it'd be like,
come back with some numbers.
Can I get a can we get breakout numbers for Poly and
I bet you Jassy comes back with, like, he probably just goes an hour on SageMaker, right? About like the last 3 years of SageMaker, and he just beats that guy down. It's like, yeah, you want me to go deeper? I will spend the next 2 hours going through all of the SageMaker.
Well, and the funny thing is, there's probably some whale like a Morgan Stanley who does like $100 million a year on SageMaker.
True.
Right. And so he's like, oh yeah, you want to talk about AI? We've got an AI product. I'm like, yeah.
They probably would. They'd probably whip out some like Midwestern manufacturing unit that's like has like spending $2 billion on it, and we're like,
exactly,
never heard of that company, and we're like, yep, sounds like a great business. So,
but we'll still say you need improvement.
You need improvement. It needs improvement. All right. Well, tune in next week where we will review Amazon's earnings. All right. Well, another topic near and dear to my heart, but no one else really cares. But I'm going to make us talk about it. Passwords. So, a couple things on passwords this week. One. This is sort of the worst case. Hackers stole access tokens from Okta support unit. So this is like an interesting happening. Like, everyone's been moving to single sign-on. Okta rather is one of the most popular ones. So it has become a popular target. So I don't know, Matt, what is like, are you worried about this? Do you think about your single sign-on providers? Do you not even care?
I worry, but I got enough other things keeping me up at night that's pretty far down the list.
Well, one of the victims was 1Password. So 1Password, funny enough, uses Okta as a single sign-on. So I went through their blog post. They said there was no specific, if you will, data loss or infiltrations, but it is something, I don't know. I feel like we have to kind of, I don't know, be more aware of like who our single sign-on providers are. But the other things, I don't know, passkeys, Matt, have you used a passkey yet? Have you enabled a passkey
No,
in any event? None?
No, I
None
have
at all.
not. Nope.
Do you even know? This is actually more of a test. Like, do you even know what a passkey is? Do you even know? Do you even care?
I do, but I haven't. Right,
Right.
and I haven't upgraded my 1Password to like get access to that stuff. I haven't upgraded my operating system. I'm practically living in the Stone Ages here.
You, my friend, you're running everything HTTP, plain text passwords. It doesn't matter. Everything's in the logs. Matt is
It's all in Kubernetes. It's not a problem.
Well, I was just gonna throw it out. So passkeys, I've been playing around with the passkeys quite a bit with the 1Password implementation. I think really good. I'm surprised how well it has worked. So I would definitely, if you haven't done it, and I guess to say 1Password has a nice list of sites that support it. So like GitHub being one. So definitely worth like trying it out. The one thing I did want to say, like I've seen a lot of stuff written about it, and I don't know if it's intentional or if it's just like general confusion, is that when you read about the main, I don't even say the tech press seems to want to like imply that a passkey requires a biometric. So this is just my one, if you will, like, I don't know, it just bothers me. I see it. So all in the end of the day is you can use a biometric to secure, if you will, what is basically, a public private key encryption thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just using, if you will, if you have an iPhone, you can use Face ID to unlock 1Password. But you can also just use your passcode, or you can just use a password to get into your phone. So there is no, if you will, passkeys are not like tied to biometrics in any specific way. So I just like every time I keep seeing this, people are like, how is the biometric information going to be stored? What's going on? It's like, no. At the end of the day, this is like some weird long number thing that is like unreadable that's being saved, whether it's by 1Password or by your Apple keychain or whatever else. And you can unlock that in many ways, one being a biometric, but you can also just use a PIN or a password. So I don't know. I just feel like the world needs to know that there is nothing special about.
They're going to steal our eyeballs and thumbs, Brandon.
Right. There is nothing. They're not going to steal that. But now they would try to steal this long thing. But again, we're not going to go through public private key encryption, because every time I try to explain it, I get it wrong. So just find your favorite YouTube video. But behind the scenes, that's all that's happening. So it's worth it, though. It is nice once it's all working, and you no longer have to use that stupid 2-factor authentication. You're just like, great. Let the computers do the math. And it's all done, and it's like perfect. So I
keep thinking I should get myself a YubiKey.
You can do it. I mean, you can store your passkeys on a YubiKey. I mean, that's fine. Then you just have to like find. Then it's just like you just have to find that thing, right? So it's like, I mean, if you're smart enough to keep your YubiKey close by and like have it plugged into your Mac, or or when you need it, you can plug it in. That would be a fine solution. You should do it. We should probably have aren't you friends with the YubiKey guys? We should maybe have them on, and they can like take us through and be like, give us another pitch about why the YubiKey is going to save the world. Maybe this is the time. I doubt it, but like, we could.
It's a bright future.
I feel like this, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they come on and be like, no, let me explain to you, Brandon. Yeah. This is why you need it. So open invitation to YubiKey people. They want to come on. They're happy to do it. Now, the next big announcement, that's going to come next week. So we'll have a full review of it, because, we are the #1 Apple podcast. No one else covers Apple like us. So next week, Apple has a quote unquote surprise event, and it looks like it's going to be something about faster Macs. Now, all speculation is it's going to be the M3. So, okay. My question is, because this is going to be Chip Corner, we can go details.
Let's go Chip Corner.
We have no idea. We don't know anything about the M3, and really, we don't know that much about Apple. There's a million podcasts.
We know everything we need to know about it already.
I was going to say, this is the part I think maybe we can look at it, because this is back to the question we were talking about with Microsoft about like, hey, how expensive is it going to be to keep running these things? Now, all indications are that the M, or not all indications are, like, we know the M3 is going to be the first chip, at least the microprocessor for the Macs, that uses the 3 nanometer chip technology. So going from the 5 nanometer to the 3 nanometer. And so the short story there is every time you go down, you get more transistors in there, less power, faster computers. So what do you think? I want to say the feeling is that going from 5 to 3 nanometer, the benefits that we've seen with other transitions as we go further down have been significant. But I feel like there's just kind of a feeling out there that we're starting to edge up towards, like, you're not going to see this big jump. So when they announce this M3 and they start to do the benchmarks, do you think we're going to see significant improvements to performance? What do you think, Matt?
If I'm a betting man, and I'm going to say you're going to see within 5% of the same improvement of going from the M1 to the M2.
So that's the key thing there is the M1, M2 was the same 5 nanometer technology. So,
okay.
By doing the step, no, but I think what you're saying, like, people are like, it's kind of out there, like the latest iPhones, they're not significantly faster. Right. And the 14 to 15 wasn't this big jump. So, and of course, like, we can count on Apple, no matter what it is, they're going to have some graph.
The graph is going to be up and to the right. Yeah,
like,
it's going to be exciting.
Will have no units of measure on either axis, which is always which is fantastic. Like, listen, if I could do that when I presented, just be like line going straight up with no units, perfect. So we know they're going to say it's great and it's 3 nanometer and this is the future. And the reason I think this is kind of interesting is, like, because back to your question around AI, it's like, well, unless we don't figure this 3 nanometer out, or something doesn't get a lot cheaper to build these chips, then it is going to cost us a lot of money to keep running these AI queries. So that's why I think this is like an interesting, little window into the future.
There's actually, I mean, I'm not a chip guy, but we talk about it on the podcast enough. I know that there has been some AI involved in chip design for, like, finding more efficient patterns. I mean, years ago they got this with antenna, where you had like what they call them, like evolutionary patterns, where they just let computers design antennas and you ended up with some like crazy wonky shapes. Well, they're kind of doing that with chip design, where they're like, okay, here's what it needs to be, how can you make it denser, go. And it keeps iterating over it, and reportedly, they've come up with some, like, some design enhancements that are AI based. I mean, they're, or rules engine based, however you like to think about it. But there, so there is some improvement coming. Whether it's stacking things vertically instead of going horizontally, or whatever it may be. So yeah, I still maintain, like, the jump will be lost on most users. I mean, I'm still rocking my M1 MacBook Air, and really there's nothing it can't do that I run into, especially now that I got a new monitor. I thought the video was bad. It was the monitor. So yeah, I think I'm not going to be at the jumping ahead of the line to upgrade until current laptop dies.
Yeah, no, I do think I have the same feeling. I have an M1 that's actually, I guess, old by today's standards, several years old. But, like, I don't know, it's like, it's fast. I mean, it just seems fast. So,
yeah.
So I guess, more battery, like, for the average user. Like, I think the one thing I do like about the M1 is just sort of like, I kind of forget that it's powered by a battery. Like, I just leave it out for like days, and then and then it's like, sometimes it goes red and I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, it's like, I do have to plug this in. So you plug it in once a week. So it'll be cool. Maybe the M3 uses a little less power. And
does it even need to use less? I mean, that's the thing, is like, can it just be like, amazingly faster at the same? Because
the door that is open, right? And very long time listeners of Software Defined Talk will remember this phrase, silver pants, which was, AJ had a laptop,
12-inch power book.
This is like probably 20 years ago. I mean, this is a long time ago, maybe 15. I don't even know.
It was back in our BMC days. So,
and it was like a tiny 11-inch laptop. And it was like, even by today's standards, it was super small. It was thick, but it was super small and great. And it was like, man, if they were to remake that laptop now, which I guess they would say is an iPad.
Well,
I know they would say it was an iPad, and that's kind of what it is. But it's like, no, no, no. If it had the keyboard and you lift it up and it could be paper thin, right? I'm just like, I don't know. I
well,
just feel like,
they already dropped the 11-inch Air. Like my wife still uses her 11-inch Intel 2015 MacBook Air, and she
oh,
loves
wow,
that thing.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they dropped the whole 11 lines. So clearly, there's not a market there for.
Well, I think there is. I think I think the Apple people would tell us, no, that's why you have iPads. But I think we all know if
No.
there was that super small, 10,
The-
11-inch thing and it ran everything and it was just
Well, that's what I have.
fast.
I've got a 13-inch,
Okay.
Air,
I'm
and
telling you, there's
it's a beast.
another level of smallness that could go on where we'd all be like, yeah,
How much smaller, Brandon? How much smaller?
we need it. We need it. I think we need it. I do.
You,
I always,
you missed the netbook days.
well, I just know because that's the thing. I want a laptop that does everything. Because I also really, because I have these iPads and we have them around the house, but like I almost never use them. And I'm like, really, I just want a small.
iPads have died out in my house. Yeah,
I just want an iPad Mac, right? Where it's just like that's like my travel thing, right? And I can leave the other stuff.
Nope.
So
all
right,
the
so
iPads are gone. Yeah,
everybody that's watching the thing. So I guess watch for the M3. Of course, we'll all decide, what I'm sure it'll be great and there'll be some cool new features that I'll want to adopt soon. Matt will adopt in 3 years. But more importantly, everyone else should be watching is like see if the chips are actually any faster because that will be like a good little window.
They'll be faster, but
significantly, right?
The speed is lost on people. That's my point.
Right. No, but I think the reason it's interesting for us is it's sort of like, hey, this sort of gives you a window into be like, well, if these chips are getting a lot faster, maybe the GPUs, when they get to the fact that they're taking advantage of this new manufacturing and shrink, like it will get a lot cheaper.
Well,
like,
and probably they'll come out with the M3, and so they can save the M3 Max and the M3 Turbo XL or whatever for the next product lines. Yeah. Right. So it'll be like significantly faster, but there'll still be like room for improvement.
Well, maybe the thing we should be watching is more specifically, we should be looking at the GPU. Like, does anything about the GPU get alive? Because then, that gets into NVIDIA's space, right? Because it seems like
NVIDIA announced that they're coming into the desktop space. So 2025, NVIDIA is going to be shipping desktop ARMs. They've already said that.
I want that. That'd be interesting.
Does anybody want that? We've got that. They said,
well, no, you're right. I guess
that support Windows.
Yeah, you're right. So I guess that would be our Windows kind of thing. That would be interesting. Yeah. Well, that'd be interesting if Apple and NVIDIA could kind of like start to fight. I think that'd be good for us. I think we'd get like more computing power. I don't know.
That would work out well. No, it's good.
So, all right, we'll make it happen. All right. Well, one other topic that maybe we do know something about because, we know so much about chips. I just thought this headline was really good. So I'll just read it here. Despite the hype, engineers not impressed with the DORA metrics. So I like this because someone did a survey about a survey. So it's like the meta survey. They surveyed people about, do they like taking the DORA survey and do they think the metrics are useful? And so this was the response. Overall, 52% of engineers surveyed who could speak on the subject said that a set of metrics assembled by Google is either not at all or only somewhat effective. So they're just basically saying 52% of the people kind of think the DORA metrics are pointless. And I was like, that is like an interesting.
But I think if you ask developers, 50% of them are going to be unhappy with whatever it is.
Right. So maybe that's the whole thing is like, can you but there is I like the idea of like going back and like just rethinking the whole thing. It's like, yes, you need to measure something to see what's going on. But I like the fact that and especially if you read more of the article, it was sort of like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like this with DORA when I read it too. I'm like, these are hard questions to answer, right? Like, you know what I mean? If you're just like reading these questions, like, do you know what productivity is? And it kind of just calls into question a lot of the stuff. It's like, who knows if these are the right questions? Who knows if this is the right stuff to be measured? And when you ask the people who are being measured, they don't seem all that enthusiastic about it. So I don't know. It just seems a little bit maybe we should think more about this. Maybe these metrics aren't as useful as people think.
I think you're ascribing more navel gazing to developers than they give themselves. I think they're mostly happy to just do their work and whatever is in front of them, and they're not thinking about the metatextual context that DORA or Space or any of these frameworks are going to apply. They're just like,
but they're the ones that they fill the DORA survey out, right? I mean, they're the ones ultimately. The data starts with them, right? They're the ones that
I know, but like having done surveys, after a while, you just kind of get burned out on the survey, and you're like, whatever, I'm just finishing this thing.
Right, but that's my whole point.
I know.
Making my point. That's my point. It's like I'm not sure, like when they, especially because they also talked about like I guess the previous ones were very long, I guess, and they said that so basically DORA made it shorter. And so I was just sort of like, I don't know. There's just someone like this is another quote I liked about like some other person said it. It was like something like Google's OKRs were like some kind of like a denial of service attack on all of Silicon Valley because like everyone tried to adopt them and use OKRs, but then it was like really hard to come up with them. And it just kind of slowed everyone down. It was like hard to come up with them, hard to measure them. No one was doing it right. And it just became like another thing that people were checking the box. So I just thought like when it kind of reminded me a little bit of that, like maybe all this DORA stuff, like, is it really? Because I think the one thing they kind of come in there, like someone said it, I think in that whole thing was just like, well, it really just comes down to like deadlines, right? Like it kind of like in the end, it's just like, I don't know.
Are you shipping?
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, maybe in the end, it's like, that's kind of the only measurement like that people like. I mean, you can, I guess it's just like, yeah, we did it. And like, now you can say we met the deadline and everyone hates each other, right? The blameless post-mortem was a fight and everyone's yelling and people are quitting. You'd be like, well, seems like the process is wrong. Or we met our deadline. At least
we shipped some code. Yeah.
And people, or you can say like we met the deadlines and people were generally like, they weren't unhappy. You know, then you'd be like, sounds like you got a good engineering culture. So I don't know. So everyone else can I'll just leave it in the show links. You can read it and decide for yourself if the DORA metrics are useful. But I like it. Now, if someone goes another level, if someone does a survey about the DORA results, we'd be 3 levels down. That I'm all in for. Like,
and then the top just stand still.
Right. Was the survey about the DORA survey useful? That would be a fantastic effort.
Did you have a retrospective?
That'd be so fantastic. All right. Final thing I wanted to get to, a little follow-up from last week. So last week, we talked about Amazon is going to sign a $1 billion deal for Microsoft 365. So here are the details. It's $1 billion over 5 years. And they're going to get a license for 1 million users. That's what the report is. So if you do all the math, if I've done it correctly, that's $200 per user, which is, I think, pretty much the list price for Office. So in the end, I don't know. I guess there wasn't, in the end,
you get a golf club for that one. Yes.
The Microsoft rep held his ground. He's getting a big bonus. Whoever's getting that, whoever's taking the $1 billion deal to the QBR, they had a great year. In fact, they should get their bonus and they should immediately leave. That's what I would recommend. You're never going to replicate that. You should leave. So, all right. A few other things on listener feedback. Friend of the show, Laura, recommends Omnivore, and it's a free open source read it later app for serious reader. I don't know. Matt, do you use this? Are you? I
don't use this. I do use the Send to Kindle plugin. So I do read things on my e-reader. Long stuff, but mostly I'm still just leaving tabs open until I get around to them.
I like it. That's the default lifestyle right there. The default lifestyle is just leave the tab open until you get to it. But I appreciate Laura recommending that in the Software Defined Talk Slack. Also, if you want a sticker, all you have to do is send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, and I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. We do have some conferences coming up. In fact, some of the people from Software Defined Talk are going to be at them. November 6th through the 9th, KubeCon North America. We are officially a media sponsor, so you should go there and you should say Software Defined Talk is the only reason you went. And you should visit Matt. Matt, what are you doing there? Tell us what you're.
I'm wearing my KubeCon EU shirt right now. So
and you're going to be manning
I will be there.
Or a booth. What do they call them?
A kiosk. I'm in the Project Pavilion. I'll be at the Open Cost kiosk most of the time.
All right. Well, if you join the Software Defined Talk Slack, there's a channel called Meetups IRL in real life there. And there's a bunch of people that are going to be there. I think Professor Jeremy, his school is actually, I think, just a few, like one subway stops going to be there. I think Jordy, fan of the show, they're going to be there. So if someone can get organized and find Matt, maybe, you guys can all go have a dinner or, maybe buy some beers or whatever, or maybe someone can find someone from VMware to buy everyone beers. I don't know. Something will be there. And Cote has provided a discount code. Now, if Cote here, he would read this entire discount code, which is
in the show notes.
I think it's like 12 characters. I'm not going to do that because I don't feel compelled. But if you want to get 20% off, go to the show notes. And as we learned last week, even you Apple Podcast players, you can just open it up right now and you can see this long code. So when you register, you can do it. Now, Cote will not be at the KubeCon because he's going to be at VMware Explorer Barcelona. And that's also November 6th through the 9th. It feels like that was a bad scheduling, right? It feels like somebody should have moved their event. What do you think, Matt?
Having been to VMworld EU and North America, the EU version of it was deeper into the virtualization side.
Okay.
So, I'm just saying maybe they haven't quite, maybe it's not the overlapping audience that you might.
You're not ready for containers yet?
I don't know. Yeah.
I like it. There's a lot of things to be careful. Well, who knows? It could be, probably the VMware acquisition could have closed by then. So who knows? That'll be another exciting event to see what they talk about there. So go check it out and go find Cote and find him and see if he'll buy you like an appetizer or something. And then also on November 7th and 8th, there's the RISC-V Summit, and that's Linux Foundation events. Matt's coworker is going to be there, so maybe you find him. Who knows? More importantly, as we discussed in the pre-show, it's RISC-V. It's not RISC-V. So go there and call it RISC-V. That way, you really look like you know what you're talking about. And I'm going to make Matt get us a report from the show from his coworker, so we can figure out what's going on. And then finally, January 29th, our friends at the VAT conference. So that one's the 29th through February 1st. That's down here in Texas, very close to me. So you should come down. That's a fun conference. That's really all about the attendees. So that's probably, if you will, I'm going to say that's the most. Oh, and it's also at a water park. So that's the most fun conference actually on here because you can actually go to a water
park. Definitely the wettest.
Absolutely. And of course, if you want to have your conference mentioned, email us and we'll find some way to become a media sponsor and it'll all work out. So with having said all that, Matt, you have a recommendation for us this week?
My recommendation is uBlock Origin. So, I run ad blockers, multiple ones, for privacy things. And last week, or maybe the last 2 or 3 weeks, Google started rolling out an ad blocker defeater in YouTube, where it says, oh, we see you're using an ad blocker, turn it off, or you won't be able to watch this. Click here to close this window. And so you close it and you're like, whatever. Yeah. And then Saturday, it just stopped working. They're like, you can't watch this. Your ad blocker's still on. And I was like, oh, crap. The uBlock Origin guys fixed it. So it works again. So thank goodness for open source. That's my
so it does work. It's back to like I can install it and see everything. Okay, all right. Good.
No YouTube ads in my browser of choice, and so shout out to the uBlock Origin guys for updating their code.
Now, where do you stand on YouTube Premium? Have you ever decided to attempted to pay for it or no? uBlock Origin is enough.
Yeah, I don't. I got enough content as it is.
Don't we all? That's good. Well, that's good. I'll have to try uBlock Origin. We'll have to see what it is. I do think YouTube Premium, though, I don't know. And the more I watch YouTube, the more I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. There's a lot of random stuff on there. So check that out. All right. So my recommendation this week, and I was wondering, Matt, if you've ever tried this. Have you ever heard of this ASCII Cinema? Have you ever heard of this?
Yes. I'm not exactly familiar with that application. Maybe I used it before. There are a couple. Is it console capture?
Yeah. So this is the tagline is record and share your terminal sessions the simple way. And so what's interesting about it is there's actually a podcast where they interviewed the creator of it. So it's open source, it's free. And it's really interesting how it whole works. So it doesn't like I would have assumed if you would have asked me beforehand, it's like, oh, it just takes like a video of the session. And it doesn't do that. It basically records, if you will, like all the ASCII commands, and then it like replays it back in a way that is, if you will, dynamically sizes it. So you can go out to their website and you can check it out. And it also doesn't record sound or anything. So these little demos are tiny. They're just like very, very small things. So it's sort of like a whole different way to make, if you will, a command line demo. So I was wondering, and Michael here in the chat is saying that he loves that thing. So I feel like it's something like many, I think probably people listening to this, like developers or anyone like DevRel, if you're making lots of these little command line sessions to show stuff, it seems like the perfect tool. So I don't know, I'm really, really interested and really creative way to do it. So if you want to hear all about that, definitely check out the podcast link. It's from the Changelog team, did a really nice interview with them, and it goes into like a ton of detail, but surprisingly interesting about how how it all works. So like, I don't know, maybe it's just like a really good example of open source. Like, I don't know, just a really smart person, like applying like an incredible amount of thinking to like what seems like a simple problem, but was like incredibly well done. So check that out. All right. Well, if this is the first time you've ever listened to the show, welcome. If you'd like to go follow us on the social channels, go down to softwaredefinedtalk.com. If you would like to read the show notes, Matt, how can you read the show notes? How could someone listening right now on Apple Podcasts, how could they read the show notes?
I think it's in the
it's in there.
now.
It's in there. Just
it's in
swipe
there.
over. You can see it. But if you still don't want to do it, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/438 and you can read it. And if you're like at the end of this, you're like, man, I wonder what those guys were talking about when they said recommendations. You know what? There's a chapter marker in there. So you can just like scroll up and you can be like, I'm going to go back and re-listen to Matt's great recommendation because I want to understand how I can watch YouTube. So you should use the chapter markers to go back and hear that. All right. Well, that's enough pitch about the Software Defined Talk production. And with that, we will talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
All right. Good show. Thanks for everyone hanging in at night. Michael, like to hear it. So you do, Michael, it's cool that you actually do use ASCII Cinema. I'm glad to hear that. I'm thinking some other people use it as well.
I'm checking
JT,
it out.
good to see you as well. Like, I'm trying to.
Yeah, I've used an app called VHS that looks to be the same thing.
Does it do kind of the same thing where it kind of captures?
Where you have a script and you tell it what to do and it renders it for you and dumps out GIFs.
Yes, this one is not just, although they did mention that was another feature that they have, so they can make it a GIF as well. So,
well, yeah, so you could just embed, animated.
Yeah, well, Sonny, the founder or the creator of it was like, yeah, he's like, I didn't really, he's sort of, because his whole thing is like not tying it to video because that way it has this nice scaling feature, but he found out like the number one feature people wanted was converting things to, or like a popular feature, I should say, was converting things to GIF. So it's funny.
Well, the cool thing, I mean, I assume it's just like VHS, where the cool thing is you can, just rerun them as you need to. So you're like, oh, we have a new CLI, just rerun the script with the new version of the app, and now we have, it just works. So you could, automate your screen flow, your screen casts.
All right. Well, there you go. Everyone needs to try it. I'm hopeful people in the Slack will be like, oh yeah, here's either a better way to do it, or they'll start posting some other stuff that they've created.
Yeah. I'm sure they're both great.
All right. Well, thanks to Michael. Thanks for JD. Thanks for Brian. Everyone for hanging in. A little late tonight, but it worked out well. I think, Software Defined Talk after dark for Central Time Zone was good. So we'll probably be back next week, probably around the same time. So hopefully that'll work out. And with that, we will talk to everyone next time.
Bye-bye.